I want to read this one from the Message. It was translated by a pastor who also is a scholar named Eugene Peterson. And he felt like the reading of the Bible, even some of the translations, made it sound too distant. So he wanted to use very common street language so that the English readers can experience the story the way the original readers of that Greek New Testament would have experienced, because it was Koine Greek. Koine meaning common, the language used by the people, the streets, in the markets, and not by the academics and the intellectuals. And so to kind of catch that, I'm going to read today from the Message, and you're just going to listen. Okay? And also, as you listen to it, you realize why it fits well, because this story is about this blind man who, using his just common sense, totally outwits the stuffy, intellectual Pharisees. So I think it goes really well. All right. Even the story itself, just the reading stuff is so fun. All right? All right. Walking down the street, see, I told you. Right, it's very common vernacular. Jesus saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked, in John chapter 9, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, causing him to be born blind? Jesus said, you're asking the wrong question. You're looking for someone to blame. There's no such cause-effect here. Look instead for what God can do. We need to be energetically at work for the one who sent me here, working while the sun shines. When night falls, the workday is over. For as long as I'm in the world, there's plenty of light. I am the world's light. He said this and then spit in the dust, made a clay paste with the saliva, rubbed the paste on the blind man's eye, and at this point we go, ew, right? And said, go wash at the pool of Siloam. Siloam means sent. The man went and washed and saw. Soon the town was buzzing. His relatives and those who year after year had seen him as blind man begging were saying, why? Isn't this the man we knew who sat here and begged? Others said, it's him all right. But others objected, no, it's not the same man at all. It just looks like him. He said, it's me, the very one. They said, how did your eyes get opened? A man named Jesus made a paste and rubbed it on my eyes and told me, go to Siloam and wash. I did what he said. When I washed, I saw. So where is he? I don't know. They marched the man to the Pharisees. This day when Jesus made the paste and healed his blindness was the Sabbath. The Pharisees grilled him again on how he had come to see. He said, he put a clay paste on my eyes and I washed and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, obviously, this man can't be from God. He doesn't keep the Sabbath. Others countered, how can a bad man do miraculous, God-revealing things like this? There was a split in their ranks. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Pretty fun, huh? I think I could just read the whole thing and then sermon is done. I love this story. So actually, I don't think the sermon itself will do justice. If we go back to the sermon title, okay. Wusiwia. Okay, this is not a misspelling, it's an acronym. You might not be familiar with this type of acronym, but maybe the next one. Can we go to the next one? Anybody know what this stands for? The WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, yes. And this was started, actually, it was a term that was used even before the computer, but it became popular in computer industry. Right? Does anybody remember those back in the days when the personal computer first started, right? And you had, it wasn't graphics, it was all text. You had like a blinking cursor, right? And if you want to see a directory, you don't press like an icon, a picture that has a folder. You have to type dir W. Anybody remember what dir/W means? Raise your hands, yeah? Okay, these are all the older geeks, right? Okay. Same here, right? dir W, right? In those days, right? So it was simple. It was like if you had 128 kilobytes, like your friends got jealous of you. Right? You had a floppy disk. It was probably the size of your purse, right? And in those days, text, what you saw on the screen, could not be what was printed out because it just didn't have enough processing power and enough memory. And then, of course, Steve Jobs comes and he creates Mac and he creates this computer that's this. What you see is what you get. In fact, so much so that their printer and their monitor, they would equate the pixel dots. And so then desktop publishers really loved this, and this became the de facto computer for desktop publishers because what you see is what you get. Whatever you see on the screen is going to be exactly how it will look when it comes out from the printer. What you see is what you get. But as I said, this has a life beyond the computing industry, right? And so sometimes people say, yo, what you see is what you get. By that, the person means, I am honest, I'm real, I'm the real thing, no pretension, no pretending. This is who I am. Take it or leave it, kind of stuff. Or in the products, they say, what you see is what you get. Here it is, the product. There's no artificial thing, no hidden chemicals. What you see is what you get. Beef, 100% pure beef. Well, actually, if you were in UK and you ate Burger King hamburger, you would have had horse meat. They had put horse meat for a while until they got found out. Or like McDonald's chicken nuggets. Do you think those chicken nuggets are real chicken breast meat? No, there's no chicken breast meat. They have 7 different ingredients. One of them is, I try to memorize it, it's a long one. I think it's like dimethyl polysiloxane. If it takes that long to say a word, you know it's not good for you. It's not good for you. In fact, it's one of the substances that goes into, actually, when you do breast implants, and when you do child's game, those putty things. In fact, they're removing the element from the breast implants because they consider that dangerous. And that's what they mix in your chicken nuggets. So one journalist said, chicken nuggets is the most famous cancer bomb. Now, none of us are going to ever eat chicken nuggets. No wonder they're 20 pieces for like $1. What you see is definitely not what you get, especially when it comes to fast food. But I think maybe the one that's most pernicious and most dangerous might be this. Actually, our whole Western scientific worldview is founded upon this. What you see is what you get. In other words, it's empiricism. Look, there's the object. If you see it, and you see it with your eyes, that's the real thing. Whatever you don't see with your eyes, that doesn't exist. It's not real. Whatever you see with your eyes is real. And what science is, what you continue to test and observe, and you try to remove the subjective elements out of it, and then you'll finally get to this objective understanding of the object or the process, and then you have truth. You have reality. And it's a lot of scientific progress has come out of this, but I'll show you a little bit later, it is not quite true that what you see is always what you get. In fact, think about it. How do we see things? What part of our body do we see things? We're not seeing the thing outside of ourselves. Isn't it? Every one of us right now is receiving light and interpreting that and creating an image all in our brain. We all see it through our brain. The observer is the one who's making the image. The object is creating light and all that, but the observer is making the image, which means the observer is very important to how we see. In fact, this what you see is what you get is false. It's the sermon title. What you see is who you are. We all see through who we are, through our hearts, through our prejudices. We can only see who we are. And that's what today's story shows, right? And especially if you read through the rest of the thing, what you see is that actually the Pharisees continue to refuse to see the man who was just healed. We just read it, some parts of it, like this guy cannot, because some of them said, you know what? There's no way healing can take place. So he said he looks like the person who begged before. And the Pharisees refused to see that he was healed because they have decided and judged Jesus was a sinner. And so they're continually refusing to heal. Let's look at some few verses. Look at chapter 9, verse 18. Now we're going to the New Living Translation. And I'll read to the Jewish leaders still refused to believe the man had been blind and could not see, so they called in his parents. It's not like they were making objective observations. They chose willfully not to see the healing. In contrast to that, in verse 36, the man who was born blind, he says, the man answered, when Jesus says, do you want to meet him? Right? Jesus, who is he, sir? I want to believe in him. Here is a man born blind. He's ready. He wants to see. So as soon as Jesus says, you're speaking to him, he kneels down and worships. So even before Jesus always is teaching, say, I'm the Son of God, this is the first instance where you see a person worshiping Christ as the Son of God. The difference, see, they all had the same thing, same event, same person, but they saw different things. Why? Because what you see is who you are. We always see through our hearts. So in one sense, actually, if you really want to know what your heart is, or what the person you are, it's not, your words don't reveal the words don't reveal you accurately. In fact, our words can actually manipulate and cover. If you really want to know what's in my heart, think about how you see things. The way you see the world, it's like an ultrasound, right? Sound bounces back, and then we can see what's inside. What we see is like light coming in and bouncing from the contours of our heart. And how we see the world is with the shape of your heart. Right? So they say, a thief always sees other people as thieves. What you see is who you are. So if you are mistrusting or distrusting, everybody you cannot be trusted. That tells a lot more about who you are. Or maybe you're complaining always that people are always gossiping. She's gossiping, he's gossiping. Actually, that's telling us about maybe what your heart is doing. A genuine measurement of our heart is how you see things. What you see is who you are. And so this is where the Pharisees, right? They go to the blind man and they try to refuse it, but he keeps saying, no, it's me, it's me, it's me. So they bring the parents, and they really lead the parents in question, don't they? They're like, is he really born blind? You better tell us he's not. And then they get scared, right? The whole story, if you get to read it, why don't you go ask him? And they go back and they bring him in, and they continue. Now, at the end, well, okay, this is funny, so let's look at this. Verse 24. Chapter 9, verse 24. So for the second time, they called in the man who had been blind. It's the second time. They're like, the evidence is there. It's clear. They don't want to accept it. They're trying to change it. God should get the glory for this because we know this man, Jesus, is a sinner. Now, it sounds like these guys really think of God and honoring God. But really, their point is this, right? They don't want to give up the fact that Jesus is a sinner. They don't want to see it in any other way. I don't know whether he is a sinner, the man replied, but I know this. I was blind and now I can see. But what did he do? They asked. How did he heal you? Look, the man exclaimed, I told you once. Didn't you listen? And you can imagine, right? Pharisees with the robes, all learned, educated. And this man, if the parents are called in, you're considered a man after bar mitzvah, right, in Jewish world. So he could have been a young person. Right? And so he's like, look, don't you listen? It could be like a 15-year-old speaking to like a 30-year-old. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? Then they cursed him and said, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man comes from. Why, that's very strange, the man replied. He healed my eyes and you don't know where he comes from? We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he's ready to hear those who worship him and do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has ever been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not from God, he couldn't have done it. You were born a total sinner, they answered. Are you trying to teach us? And they threw him out of the synagogue. They're so set in their ways that they will reject and throw away anything that's contrary to their opinion. And listen to the logic. The logic, it breaks down, doesn't it? It's like, okay, you honor God because Jesus is a sinner. But by that, we're saying, okay, it looks like you're the person who was born blind and this thing happened. So it's a miracle. We admit then we can't because the hard data is there. But honor God because Jesus is a sinner. But you're just saying that God did it, but God did the miracle through a sinner? And it just breaks down that logic. And so at the end, what do they go? They end up name calling, right? Ah, sinner, mudslinging, get out of here. Because they just lost. What you see is who you are. So then, how can we expand our view? How can we see truth if we are stuck in this sight and perception that is so limited by our heart? When we can only see what we want to see, what we need to see. How do we do it? Well, again, this story helps. The first thing is this. You have to recognize that you are blind. Every one of us here have some blinders. And no matter how much we have progressed in our Christian faith, we all have blinders. They're blind spots. We cannot see everything. That's the first thing we've got to start with. Now, this man born blind, he has a great beginning because he knows he is blind. But do you see that it is because of that honest recognition of a situation that is open to the grace act of God? While the Pharisees, they believe they can see. They don't want to be taught. They're so full of all their understanding and knowing, and they think that what they see is the all of reality. There is no other thing that's beyond what I know and what I see. And so they're so full of that, there's no space for Christ to come in and to begin to expand their view. So that's the first thing. We need to recognize that we are blind. We don't see everything. Okay. Now, a little, I don't think it's a detour. As I said, I told you about the Western scientific worldview. It's based upon this empiricism, what you see is what you get. Well, actually, that has come to a lot of questioning. Is really what you see what you get? Is science merely this objective observation of the things as it is? Because think about that. All scientific knowledge that we are proclaiming, where does it all come through? Through what eyes are we observing all this? The human species. It's the human species, right? This species, at this point, right, with our eyes, with our capabilities of reasoning, we are interpreting this world. And what we're saying is that how we interpret this world through these eyes is it. Now, it is amazing, isn't it? That with this brain and with these eyes, we could think about the universe and the age and how atoms interact, even go beyond it. But still, even if we use machines and tools and all that, all of it at the end comes through these eyes, our senses. And what we are saying is, all of reality can be captured by the senses and the reasoning of a human species. Does that sound a little arrogant? Really? There's no reality that could be beyond what the human species is capable of seeing and understanding? So, again, Thomas Kuhn, Scientific Knowing, Les Newby, and I'll call later, they're not saying science is bad, but you were saying, science, humble yourself, know your situation. Even we have 3 cones, right? Dogs have two cones in their eyes, so they receive 2 lights, which limits them, what they see. We have 3, but just by the 3rd one, we could see great things like rainbow, and it's such a beautiful colors. But even in the animal kingdom, we're not the one who could see most colors. Butterflies have 5. Do you know which animal has the most cones in the eyes? Okay. Yeah, the mantis shrimp. All right, he's the man, right? And how many does mantis shrimp have? Yeah, 12, I've heard, right? 12 cones. Could be 13, right? And can you imagine? In other words, even this small mantis shrimp, 6 to 12 inches, sees colors that we human beings will never see, and we can't even put it into words. And we're saying all of reality is exactly what the human species is seeing. And one other thing, scientific knowledge too. All our human knowings, because it comes to human beings, and because it comes to the groups of human beings, there is no such thing as the only objective hard science. Again, Thomas Kuhn, Scientific Knowledge, and Leslie Newby says, high schoolers, is this pretty fun? Yeah, this is what you learn, right? This will prepare you for college, okay? Apologetics. Right? So what he's saying is that even all of our knowing, right, it happens through groups in society. It's called the plausibility structure. Let me just, it's fun for me, okay? Let me just read this to you guys, okay? And then I will explain it. This is important, right? Okay, so this is Leslie Newby again, who was an atheist, who became a Christian, and who believed that the resurrection actually is the ground upon which we could see the world, and the world will make more sense. Again, he comes from an atheist who experienced a secular atheistic worldview, and it didn't make sense of all of his reality. Contemporary exponents of sociology of knowledge, okay, in other words, people who say how we know, have made us familiar with the fact that our sense of what is real is to a large extent a function of the society in which we live. Okay, we always say, what you see, what you can know. What you see is who you are. What you see is what group you belong to. Because of the group, you will see things certain ways. It is almost impossible for an individual to deny steadily the reality of things that society regards as real, or to affirm the reality of things that society regards as illusion. Or you could say the worst form would be brainwashing, right? The plausibility structure, that's what I mean, plausibility structure. The society that we live in, they create this way in which we see the world. That's the plausibility structure. And in one sense, that's the only way we could see the world. Right? Okay, so plausibility structure, the logical interpretation of what is the case are socially produced. Now here's the thing. The modern scientific worldview functions as a plausibility structure in the same way as does Islam or Catholicism. So we think science works in a different way. Again, hard data, it's hard science. Everything else is preference. Religion is your preference. It does talk about reality. Science talks about reality. And what people who study knowing and knowledge realize is that, no, all type of knowing, even scientific knowing, especially if you go to the history of science, is plausibility structure. It functions the same way in which a person who goes in Islam sees the world one way. A person who goes in Catholicism sees the world in one way. Now, by this point, you're saying, let's be humble about where we are. Every one of us are limited in our vision. We have some blind spots, even science, even as Christians. And so we must be humble and be open to learning new things. And then we see this. When we recognize we're blind, when we know that we need to see better, and Christ comes and Christ heals. Sight is always a gift. Sight is never my intellectual capacity, because again, we're limited by who we are and the plausibility structure. And so we can't make ourselves see more things. Because whenever we see more things, we'll just put it back into our plausibility structure and interpret it in that. Just like the Pharisees were doing. Okay, it happened, but we know Jesus is a sinner, so God did it. Forget this Jesus. Squeeze it in there. It's only, so even the blind men, right? It was Jesus who says, and this was reminded to me by our small group, he didn't even ask for it. Jesus comes and says, puts the mud paste and heals him. Just like that. Sight is always a gift. God makes something happen in our lives. And it jars us completely. And then that new experience makes us see the world differently. In one sense, every new perception is a gift. I remember living up in New York, I lived in a 9th floor apartment, and it was a beautiful window scenery. We lived quite far from the city, Manhattan, but we could still see the skyline, and it's 4th of July, we could see the fireworks. I mean, just New York was that big, and we had a clear horizon towards the city. And it was a beautiful place that we lived in. I enjoyed it. And then Ian was born, and then when I came up to 9th floor, that window suddenly became a death fall. I was so afraid of that window. I need to make sure the window is closed. All because a new experience of birth. It's strange how just one life changes the way you see everything. So wall outlet before, no worries, but now every wall outlet is like a death trap. So I have to close every wall outlet. Everything now is seen. Why do people drive so fast? Of course, before Ian, I was the one who was speeding. Now everybody keep a speed limit, man. You experience something, and then your perception changes. It's a gift. And so whenever I'm interacting and I feel like this person, I'm imagining this person to be, wow, this guy's a really bad person. He's corrupt to the core. But then I begin to see him, well, like a baby. He was a baby too. I don't remember when I was a baby, but as I see Ian the baby, I could see other people being likewise, a baby, a toddler, a human being like me. And that's not because, again, I am wiser in that way, but because I've been given a gift to see things differently. Christ wants to open your eyes. Christ wants you to see the world more clearly. Christ wants to see and help you see His glory. But it starts with the recognition that right now, even where we are, we have blind spots. So Christ come. And another thing that needs to be done. So we are humble. Christ heals us. Is this? There's an obedience, isn't it, right? He's blind. Christ does something. And actually what He does is a strange thing, isn't it? Why does He make a mud paste with His spit? Right? One could have been like, it's Sabbath. So He's basically saying to the Pharisees, look, I am working. What you got to do, right? It could be that. It could be that because there's mud paste, he has to wash himself. So go wash. Yeah, I will. Even if you didn't tell me to, I will, right? And I'll wipe this off. But I mean, there's that. But I think the more richer imagery for me is this, that he was sent to the pool of Siloam, which is called, what? The place where one is sent. He goes to the place where he's sent. And it's only when he goes to the place where he's sent and he's washing off that mud paste created by spit that he begins to see. Now, for some of us then, that means you will only see Christ more powerfully if you obey Christ and go to where Christ has sent you. If we stay at where we are, if we're stuck in this type of life where it's about education only, where it's about degree, it's about what school I go to, it's about square footage of the home, it's about the dollars that I have, it's about the vacation I go, then you will be stuck in that small little world that you live in. And you will not see anything else except for those numbers. What a small world. How tragic to live and die like that and to think that was the reality. This is the world. And the only way to go beyond it is to go where Christ has sent you and to obey. Then you see things differently. Then you see that the world is not just about numbers and comparisons. That this world is beautiful and glorious and broken and needs healing. But Christ is here, healing, doing his work. But that's the only way to see that is to go where we are sent. So now, every one of you guys are sent already. Every one of you guys are sent already. You know, when you think about it, even like missionary trips, a lot of people go to missionary trips, they say powerful. Do you know why missionary trips are so powerful? Because at missionary trips, we go with the mentality that I am sent. When I go there, I don't go there as tourist. So I see the world differently. I am so focused on the work of God that you see these miracles happening left and right. It's not because there's more miracles there. Your eyes has opened because you obeyed. But here's the thing. You are missionaries. Where you are right now, God said, go. Don't forget that. Where you are is where you are sent. Repeat this after me. Where I am is where I am sent. Where I am is where I am sent. And obedience for us then means that this is my missionary field, homework, school, college. And then begin to, with that, just changing that identity, you begin to see things differently. You begin to see things differently. Like the story I heard about the woman who went to because of work, went to a place where the school was not good and felt terrible for her children and was complaining to God, why did you bring me here? Why did you bring me here? And then through prayer, he realized, no. It wasn't like God was punishing her, but God has sent her there to that school. Because it's not, the world is not just about education for my kids so kids can succeed. No, it's about doing the work of God. And so she began to see the school differently. And so wherever there was some help to be done, she volunteered. She began to pray for the teachers and for the kids. See, that identity, same place, but the identity changed. Then you get to see what God sees. An elderly Korean woman has a hair supply store not far from here. And that's so typical, right? So Korean men have dry cleaners and Korean women have hair supply store, right? But she believes that that store is her mission field. That mission field. And so she would turn on the gospel music, old, drawling, long gospel music. And she's like, I own this place. Can't do anything about that. She turns that on. And every customer is not just a customer. It's an opportunity. The door opens to share. And so one African-American couple came in and they were talking. And an African-American couple, as he realized that this person was looking for a church, she said, hey, broken English, this church, you call and give the number. Come. Korean church, but there's English church too. And I heard the story, so I think you might know this already, right? Gerald, today Gerald is not here. His brother is a founding pastor in Florida. He came and they're spending time together as family, traveling. But Gerald told me a story, and he said he was taken back because he felt like he was not just a customer from whom she needs to pay. Like she really cared for him. And he was surprised that she really followed through and gave him the number. And once he got the number, because he thought up to this point it was just being nice, so once he got the number, he felt like he had to call. And so he called me, and I called him right back. All because one elderly woman, even with broken English, believed that her store was her mission field. Where you are now, okay, no matter how lousy that school is, how lousy that work is, how lousy that family might feel like, you are sent. You are there. Accept the Siloam, and your eyes will open, and you'll begin to see the glory of God, and you will worship. Just as this man who was born blind, but could now see. So in one sense, I'm going to call you this morning to communion. And I want you to come, and I want you to receive the gift of sight by receiving Christ's body that was broken for you, and his blood shed